minute. We just had a meeting. Oh, there he is.
Hey, how's it going? And I am going to have to leave a bit early because I've got some kids who I need to help get ready for school. But we can start. Maybe I'll go first, and then Tom, I might hand over hosting permissions to you, and then I'll hopefully jump back on in a few minutes. Okay. How's everyone going? Zibunek, congratulations. Good to see you. How's everything going?
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it's good. Like it's much better than the first couple of days. It was pretty, because like the delivery itself, it was okay, but my wife has some foot injury before the delivery, right. So she wasn't able to like move. So the first couple of days were like exhausting, but it is going now well. So everything
Glad
good.
to hear it. Glad to hear it. All right, well, we can jump right into it then. As I mentioned, I'm going to have to pop off here in just a second. Yes, great. Good first agenda item, which is congrats, Zibunek, on the baby. I love it. Yeah, everyone was thrilled about that. I'm going to go through, let me paste the meeting notes into the chat as well for folks. Right here. Thank you, Tom. He's going ahead and doing. And I realized I probably need to come in here too and remove a bunch of our old notes into the archive so that we don't see this starting to lag up again. Because last time when we had like a year's worth of agenda notes, it went really far. So I'll start really quickly with an update, and then if we can just go around the room and do a quick intro and then share any items that folks want to cover. I've got to go help get some kids off to school, and then I'll hopefully be back here in a few minutes if the meeting's still running. So I'm Jeff. Thank you for adding my name already. I work at Microsoft. In terms of updates, there's a few things I'll update. Oh, wow. So this is one. I'll just weigh in right now. Yeah, I think moving to the GitHub Container Registry, I'm all for it. I actually been using the GitHub Container Registry more recently for some of my new stuff. I think that's a great idea. The updates from my side, I spent a little bit of time. There's two more customers who are in Azure, who are kind of enterprises who are looking about using KEDA that I've been helping with. One of the results of that is that there's a few folks who want to use KEDA with Cosmos DB. So yesterday, Onrud and myself met with the Cosmos DB team. They're investigating right now of adding a Cosmos DB scaler in the next few months, which would be great, and it would unblock some of these customers. So we're hoping to see that scaler be added as well. I shared, oh, go for it.
Sorry to interrupt. Will they work on it, or?
That's the intent, is that they would work on it. They might work on it and then hand it off to like the functions team to kind of support and maintain the same way we're supporting like some of the other Microsoft sponsored ones. But the plan right now is that they would actually help build the thing. And we're trying to figure out right now if they're going to be building it in Go with their Go SDK, or if they'd be building it in .NET with their .NET SDK, and it would be an external scaler. We just sent them some info yesterday, and Ahmed helped out there too. The other I shared, I don't know if Jonathan's on the call. I don't think so. I shared the recording from last week's recording with a few folks as well, to look over. It looks like there's a pretty common pattern between wanting like HTTP scale stuff. I know we have the HTTP KEDA scaler. That I think the last email I saw was that we were just about to publish that blog post. But anyway, that's it from me. So a little bit of working with Cosmos DB, a few working with customers. A lot of those customers are really loving Kafka. So Tsuyoshi and I have also been chatting a lot about Kafka. But with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to jump off, and then folks can keep going around the room. So maybe to keep the ball rolling, Tom, I'll hand the ball off to you, and you can do a quick intro and either give your updates, or we can just go around the room and then just go straight to the agenda.
Yeah, so my name is Tom Kerkhoven, and I'm an Azure architect at a company called KEDA. So next up in my list is Tsuyoshi.
Yep. So can you hear me? Yep. Yes. My name is Tsuyoshi. I'm from Microsoft. So mainly contributing currently for the scaled job. Thank you very much. Yep.
Now my list just went away because I started sharing. So next up is Aaron.
Yep, I'm Aaron. I work for Microsoft, and I'm working primarily on the HTTP autoscaling project.
Next up, Ahmed.
Hi, I'm Ahmed. I also work for Microsoft, and I'm a maintainer on KEDA.
Thank you. Then we have Sonia.
Hi, I'm Sonia. I'm a PM on the Azure Functions team from Microsoft.
Thank you. And then we have Ritika.
Hi, I'm Ritika from NEC India.
Thank you. And then last but not least, we have Shubham.
Hi, I'm Shubham from NEC.
Oh, it was, but I wasn't sure. Okay. Thank you. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so.
You missed me, but we already talked at the beginning.
Please do enlighten me, Zygmunt. Who are you?
My name is Binek. I work for Red Hat, and I don't have any big updates. So we can continue.
Does anybody have anything for the agenda that is not listed yet that you would like to discuss? Jeff is not here now, so if you want to discuss something about Jeff, I'm just kidding. Okay, I added a couple of things, so let's just dive right into it then. So last week, I think we opened our annual review for Cncf. So it is on the pull request link there if you are interested. Basically, every year we need to mention what we did, how it compares to the roadmap that we committed to, and where we are going. So yeah, that's all open there. And then as a follow-up, we finally started looking at our incubation proposal. So first we need a sponsor. So I am checking now with Liz Rice, who was one of our original sponsors for going to Sandbox, if she wants to sponsor us going to incubation, and then we will start writing that document as well. Any questions on this?
Is there anything else needed for the review or for the proposal currently?
For the annual review, they just need to go through it, but I don't see much issues there. And then for the incubation proposal, once we have a sponsor, there's the whole due diligence process, but that's basically it. So hopefully we can also reuse a lot from the annual review in terms of the content to open the incubation proposal. Okay. But most probably we would need to present to the TOC. Actually, it is documented what the procedure is. So over here, so I will. So this is the process. Let me see, did this change again? No. Yeah, I'll just add a link, but basically you just need to have a healthy community and some other things that we normally already have, and then they will review it. So I'll just add a note. Okay, then I didn't join the last stand-up, so I'm not sure what the outcome was, but I was wondering if we should start documenting the integrations that we have with other projects. For example, I know Apache Airflow uses KEDA to autoscale. Maybe there are others, but maybe it is interesting to document all of these so that people who are using these tools know they can use them together. Again, it's just an idea. It's not a must. So I was curious to know what people are thinking.
I agree. It's a great idea to add those.
Any other ideas? People who think it's not a good idea.
That sounds good to me too.
Same here. Yeah.
Do you think would you like to have this on KEDA.sh or just a integration to the repo, let's say? I think maybe the documentation would be ideal.
I guess we can have like a separate page on the KEDA.sh with the list and with the links to the actual products and projects.
That's what I thought as well.
Yeah, and if there can be a short description on how the integration uses KEDA, that might give other people some ideas if they're trying to pick up KEDA and use for their project too. So it'd be nice.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll try to open an issue for that. Then the proposal to move our Docker images to GitHub Container Registry. So we already have Jeff and Zibenek agreeing. I see Ahmed is here as well. Do you have any concerns on moving them? So I don't know if you saw the issue, but the point is that GitHub Container Registry gives you a lot more metrics than Docker Hub. And given the rate limiting they announced, I think it would be nice to move.
I've never really used GitHub Container Registry for anything major, so if it's sort of as reliable as Docker Hub, then yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, so we started it as a test for the HTTP scaling as well, and this is a screenshot that I added. I think you should see this tab as well, but basically it's just as simple as you can do it publicly as well. It gives you a Docker pull, and then it also shows you the pulls per tag, which means that we would have a better understanding of how many people are still using older versions and newer versions. And GitHub will also give you more thorough metrics like what's the comparison between ARM and Linux and Windows and all of those architectures.
I see.
Okay, so are we gonna move it for the next release? So we will release the next release on this registry.
So I did my own migration for another project. What I did was in the next release I announced the deprecation. I still published to Docker Hub, but at the same point, I also pulled all the images from Docker Hub. I re-tagged them and published them to the new registry so that all the versions are in the new registry. And then people can already migrate or not, and then just drop a note that as of the next version, we will only publish to GitHub Container Registry. But this release is the last one on Docker Hub, so you don't have to change anything yet. There's also the benefit of Helm charts. We can change it. People will implicitly use the new registry. So if you're doing YAML deployments, those will be the only ones, I think.
In the YAML, it's in the deployment anyway, so there won't be any big change.
True as well, yeah. So I think the impact would be fairly low.
I haven't had any problems, for what it's worth, using it for the HTTP project. It's been pretty seamless.
Yeah, I like it as well. And one of the main points that I like it is if I go to the HTTP. So if you go to the repo, you can also see the container just directly. So it's closer to home, let's say. And if you're on the page of one container, you can go straight to the repo as well. So everything is in one place, basically. Now, what I would like him to do is if there's a release with a specific tag, which is the same as the container image, to also show it here so that you can go from release to image. But it's still in preview though, so it's good to mention that. Maybe that brings some concerns to people, but I don't think this is going away or will drastically change, frankly.
So maybe while it's still in preview, we still publish to both Docker Hub and GitHub, and like at least during the preview period, so that we have something to pull back on if anything happens. Then.
Let me check. The roadmap is. It's called packages. I think it's this one for next quarter. But yeah, makes sense. I will add a note here. Tom will to publish. I'll open an issue. That all ones are already available. Okay. So I'll take up those issues then. I will probably also migrate the existing images. I'll just write a quick script that does that. Okay, so KubeCon EU, we may or may not have a session. Maybe I'm not allowed to say, but maybe we'll have one, which is good. Finally, a KubeCon with KEDA. It's been too long, if you ask me. Now, HTTP autoscaling. Aaron, maybe a quick update on where we are before we dive into the rest.
Sure. Yeah, we have released first alpha, which is the core functionality. The core architecture is implemented. You can submit a CRD and an operator will respond by creating infrastructure you need to route and scale your workload, your HTTP server or servers. So we are working now on the blog post that you see Tom put a link in there for. That's going to be an announcement for the Alpha 1. We just mentioned actually the images for Alpha 1 are up on GitHub Container Registry as well. And I think those are all the basic pertinent details of this. Tom is slacking big time on this. Tom, I don't think you're slacking on this.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, so Alpha 1 was technically released on the GitHub page, the GitHub releases page a couple weeks ago. So since then, we are moving forward with some of our Alpha 2 features. You can go in and see the milestone for that on the HTTP add-on repo. There's some discussion over the scope of this. I think we might talk about that now. The scope of how far the HTTP add-on should sort of reach into your infrastructure, and how how many things it should create for you versus things that you should have control over yourself. That will affect what we do in the Alpha 2 and beyond. But we probably will be ready with an Alpha 2 release either next week or early the week after that. And the goal for that is to improve stability and improve the general user experience for deploying a new scaled workload. Because right now, there's a matter of just how fast it happens after you submit your HTTP scaled object, and also how many things you have to manually set up in your cluster. And alongside of that second problem, we also have to add quite a bit of documentation for folks to get up and running, and then to be able to manage multiple applications running in the same cluster, either in the same namespace or in different namespaces. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. I think it's a very nice piece of work indeed. The only thing that sometimes comes up is, do we also create the services and the ingresses and all of that, or do we only support bringing your own? I can see value in both. But today, Noah had a good point on Slack, is we're building an auto-scaling solution. So is it our responsibility to do this? Or is that part more of a separate project maybe that we carve out and runs fully independent or not? Because clearly this is, it is a nice thing to have, certainly if you're new, but I'm not sure, me personally, if it's part of KEDA or not. And that's not an offend or anything, but merely just do one thing and do one thing well. And I'm interested to hear what the others think about it.
I'll just throw out there, my plan is to build a layer on top of this. It's like you said, Tom, different repository, probably outside of the KEDA org. So whatever, if we take stuff out of this, if there are things in this that are out of scope, it won't be thrown away in case that is off-putting to anybody. So if anyone thinks that there are things that are out of scope of this project that are in the project now, rest assured, it won't be just thrown in the trash cans. It will be used elsewhere.
I don't know, what do other people think? It'll we should show it a bit.
I think I mentioned this to Aaron before. I do think that it'll make more sense for KEDA if KEDA doesn't manage the ingress or the services, and it just manages the scale. However, with that said, I don't entirely know how that would work, because somebody like the service needs to point to the HTTP activator rather than the actual deployment that it lands on, because otherwise we won't be able to intercept requests. So unless we make that some sort of a convention that your service needs to point to this other thing, not actually to your own deployment, I don't see how we can make it so that KEDA doesn't have to be managing the service or the ingress. But
isn't it twofold? You'll have a service for KEDA for receive. Oh, okay, I get your point.
So right now, the operator, as it stands in the Alpha 1, the operator has to create the activator workload, the deployment for the activator, and the service for the activator, and an external scaler and a service for the external scaler. And that is because the external scaler may be obvious why it has to create the service for that. But for the activator, which we call it the interceptor in this case, but either way, that workload, the external scaler needs to talk to that as well. So it actually creates two services one for the external scalers to talk to it, and the other then for ingress from the public internet. So to me, that seems like, oh, and I think one of the things that prompted this discussion is there's a PR in there now to also create an ingress to route traffic to the public proxy server in that activator component. So I do agree with you, Ahmed, that we should have it automatically create a service for the public proxy endpoint in the this interceptor, because there would otherwise need to be kind of a second step for you to take just to get bare minimum functionality. But then beyond that, we might be able to say, I actually am starting to think, even though I submitted the PR to do the ingress part, I actually am starting to think we can say, okay, the operator has created the bare minimum functionality for you. You are able now to route traffic to this service if you want to start auto scaling, but you have to decide, are you going to route traffic from your ingress controller using the ingress object, or are you going to route traffic from a service mesh, or is it going to be just internal traffic that you're going to just route directly from somewhere else to the service? But once we have the bare minimum that you can route something, whatever you want, to this service, and then the traffic will be inside of the auto scaling component tree, I am starting to think that we can end the scope there and then add documentation that shows people fairly easily how to get their traffic into the system at that point.
Yeah, me as a user, I would prefer that I can still manage my own service and ingress, and that I can just plug in KEDA, let's say, personally.
Hey, I'll introduce myself. I'm Ryan, new to the project. Just from howdy, from a user perspective, I like both tracks. One having an easy, like, get this working, get everything up and running for me so that I can just understand how it works. Creating, having an option, whether it's an example or built-in option, to have it build everything for me end to end. But personally, most of our services are going to be exposed through a multi-cluster ingress or something that's not the standard single cluster ingress. So being able to have options to bring my own would be something that would be useful for our work, our use case.
Yeah.
Another question, Ryan, that you just reminded me of is, right now we have the operator that you can just give it an image name, and it will automatically even create a deployment for you. And there's a PR in now that you can turn that behavior off and just have the operator route to an existing deployment. So we might want to completely remove the option to have the operator create a deployment as well, because that's kind of another thing that feels like it may be out of scope. Is that it's not dealing with auto scaling or HTTP routing anymore.
Yeah, I think that the deployment side is definitely one that I would leave out, maybe, because typically deployments, you'll need to add environment variables, you need to do mounting and all of that stuff. So if we support it, we'll need to support a lot of different scenarios, and frankly, for what reason? So I agree there.
So I can propose this. I can propose that we define a scope, and the scope is expressed in relation to where traffic starts and ends in the system, and where HTTP traffic starts and ends in the system. And I think that should pretty well allow us to determine what features go in and out. And to me, just top of my head, to me, that scope means when traffic gets to a component that needs to report a scale event, or a component that needs to route to another component internal to the scaling infrastructure. But I'll write it out more.
So do we agree that the deployments that we will leave this out? And if we create something automatically for the users, that it is just ingress or service or not? What do you think, Sivnik?
That makes sense to me.
Go ahead. I think it makes sense to me, and I guess that like this automatic creation of for example, the deployment from the image or the other things is maybe more of in charge some kind of CLI or something like that. That basically that
maybe
will
that's
be built on top of the core solution. So I kind of like the shape that Aaron just described, that the distinction between the traffic inside the cluster. Yeah. So I agree.
You were going to say something, Ahmed? Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say that I agree too, that you probably shouldn't be creating a deployment unless you end up taking a deployment spec as the entire, like you wrap the deployment spec, just like we do with the jobs, because there are a lot of stuff inside the deployment that people eventually will want to configure, and you either re-implement them or just take an entire deployment spec, which makes it sort of unnecessary, I think. So
yeah, I think if we go that route, that's a whole different area, and for what added value, frankly. Okay, and well, so shall we keep the current experience where we also create the service and ingress for you if you want, or not? Or do we use another route where?
I mean, I feel for the service, like as I mentioned, I think either the operator has to be the one creating it so that it knows where to route the traffic, so it does the interception or activation. Or if you allow the users to create it themselves, then there's going to have to be some convention about like what selector does that service uses, so that the traffic goes through the HTTP components in KEDA to know to activate it, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Does that
with
make sense?
The service that it creates is routing to a deployment for internal infrastructure that it has to create. So I agree with you, Ahmed. It should also create that service.
Tom, does that make sense to you, or?
Yeah, I'm thinking if there's an easy way that we can do it. Because you could also argue that if you can yeah, let's work on the scope first, and then we can have a more detailed look. Because in our applications, like Ryan said, we will always manage the service ourselves and the ingress. So it should be as straightforward as possible. We'll just need to find a way where it is easy to do.
We can have, here's one idea is Ahmed, you mentioned having a convention, a naming convention earlier. We have a naming convention now. It's just not formalized. So there is a naming convention then for the deployment and the selectors for the interceptor that we have to route to. So unless we add the activator pattern to this system, we could give someone, this is the naming convention, you need to create a service and an ingress using this naming convention, and now your traffic will be routed properly. But if we do add SMI-based scaling, or we add the ability to skip the interceptor component when there is one or more replica, at that point, then this would break down, because we would have to have some componentry monitor and actively change the configuration of the ingress. So that's something to keep in mind.
Maybe it would be useful if we create some example scenarios. Imagine you have this HTTP application. Hopefully there are already examples, but if we deploy this and then we add auto-scaling, what is the impact? Another reason why that would be useful is also to explain to people more in a walkthrough fashion of a bit similar like the samples we have today. Hey, this is the non-auto-scaled application. In order to add auto-scaling, you need to do this and this and this, and that's how it works. Because then maybe we have more concrete examples of the steps that need to be taken. Would that make sense to you guys, or is it only me that's not struggling, but where it would help if you have a more verbose example?
Yeah, I think that could help. Like if we have a list of desired scenarios and examples to enable, and then we can look at the design that we have and see how to improve it.
Is that something you can have a look at, Aaron, to add, let's say, just a service example and an ingress example?
So would this be an example of a workload that would require the operator to create an ingress?
No, just as kind of documentation or walkthrough. Hey, imagine we have this this Nginx deployment that we have today, which is exposed to a service. Now we'll apply auto scaling, and then it basically shows what you need to do and what is being created or what the steps are. Because the examples we have now, I don't have it open anymore. It's just, hey, this is the HTTP scaled object. You need to configure it like this and this. But maybe if we have those high-level overviews, that would tell the story better. But maybe it's just me. Yeah, I don't know.
I can certainly create that. It sounds like just some use cases.
Yeah, exactly. Use cases is a good word what I was looking for.
Yeah, I can create that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there anything else people want to share or discuss?
Oh, I wanted to ask about the next release for KEDA. When is that? I have a few items that I'm working on that I'd like to get in before, but I was curious when it's going to happen.
Well, actually, I was recently thinking if we should, I think we once discussed it, but if we should do frequent or scheduled releases, maybe not really have them as hard deadlines, but more to stimulate ourselves to release, because honestly, I don't really think about it much until I see the whole changelog and think, hey, maybe it's time to ship this.
Okay.
So Ahmed, do you have any like rough estimate, like how much time would you need, like to?
Oh, I can get them done this week. I just have other stuff, so it's like I keep shuffling
Yeah,
things around.
I don't mean like no rush or anything, like, but we can, like, if you need like some time, then we can like agree on the next release.
I think I need a week, about a week.
So Tom, why don't we basically discuss the release next stand-up, and if everything is going well, we can release that week. If not, we can postpone. Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Should we start doing maybe more frequent releases, or do we just do them ad hoc now?
I don't know.
Let's stick with what we're doing. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Anybody else who wants to share some? Maybe one more thing. Chiosi, about the scaled jobs. So I was wondering if you are up for contributing metrics for those, so that people can use Prometheus to monitor them. The discussion we had was more about somebody who's looking at parsing the logs because he doesn't have the metrics, but ideally he could use that.
Yeah, I agree. So we are discussing in Slack. Yeah, I agree with the scaled object and adding for the scaled job as well about the Prometheus, the metrics. Like, yeah, I don't see the code, but yeah, have a look and try to contribute it.
Okay, perfect. I don't know if we have an issue on that one, but maybe we should add one to keep track of that then. Okay, thank you for looking at that, Chiosi, and thank you everybody for joining, and see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. I got back here for the last few minutes, but
yeah, that's what you're saying. But actually, you've been just here snooping around.
Yeah, I was snooping. No, my daughter, she just started going back to school, and she did this when she was in kindergarten. But she gets really anxious when she goes to school, and so when she was in kindergarten, sometimes she gets so anxious that she would throw up. Which usually the school was like, "Yeah, we get it. She's just anxious." But now that it's in the middle of a pandemic, if any kid's gonna throw up, they're like, "Oh, it's no go." So yesterday she started feeling anxious again. So today my wife was like, I need your help so that we don't have her barfing in school. So that was it, but we figured it out. So appreciate you all helping and Tom for running the meeting while I was gone.
Okay, thank you, no problem.
Yeah, Zibianek, the things you have to look forward to in the years to come.
Thank you.
Never a dull moment. See y'all.
I've been in the same situation this weekend, so.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay, see ya.
See you guys.
See you. Bye.